thank you for joining us today in our webinar fifth series of the Educators Clinic. It's going to be about ego versus confidence with Mr. Hatem Mahmoud.
Thank you, Haifa. Thank you so much for the beautiful, wonderful introduction. And it is indeed our fifth Educators Clinic webinar for this academic year. We haven't started with the beginning of the academic year when you are in the part of the world that starts with August, September school year. But we are happy to conclude this season by this session of today. And as you can see, I'm not sharing any screen because this is going to be a brief overview of a book that I really was impressed by, which is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. I'm not sure if you can see it. Yeah, maybe this Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday. And also, I would like to announce that the setting of our webinars moving forward after we get a couple of or after you get a couple of months vacation from my face and voice, moving forward, we will be having some guests with us in the webinars. So it's going to be hopefully a one-to-one conversation with a guest. And also we would be assigning one book every month to, if you have the time, of course, to read it, if you haven't read it, so that you can go through it by the beginning of the month. And then when we meet at the end of that month, we can hopefully, and again, I say hopefully, meet and conversate with the author of that specific book. I do not claim that I have Ryan Holiday with me now on the online, but we might bring him someday, bring him online as well to discuss. But moving forward, this will be the intent and the target to review a book and review the ideas and the insights of that book and have this conversation as well. And of course, all from the perspective of an educator. At the end of the day, it is a huge responsibility when we stand inside the classroom, face multiple backgrounds of our learners every single day, and we are expected to show up every single day with positive energy, with encouragement, with empowerment for learning, and not only that, but actually leading the learning as well. So moving forward, of course, we as learners, we have to give the best example of lifelong learners, and we have to never stop learning ourselves so that we do not tend to pour from an empty cup. Especially nowadays with all the the innovation in learning. I was just in an event this morning here in Riyadh called Inoxera, and it comes from innovation. And so it's like, yeah, an AI is taking over. Is it? That's a big question. But of course, at the end of the day, education will always be rooted in teaching what really matters and learning what really matters, which is social and emotional skills and communication with self and others. So that being said, I would really welcome the connection with each and every one of the attendees now, and as we move forward along this webinar session for today, if you have any question or a comment, please jot it down on the chat, and Haifa will be following up with it. I will not again be sharing a screen because I tend to have this as the final session of the academic year. So I would like to really connect with you without any distractions as per se. But yeah, let's kick a start with the topic for today, which is basically ego versus confidence. And again, from the perspective of educators and teachers inside the classroom and dealing with heads of departments, dealing with grade level leaders, vice principals, principals, heads of schools, and whatnot. Of course, you get impact and you get influenced by the way how others lead, whether it's a small team or whether it's a big team. And if you yourself are a leader in your position as well in the school, it is really good to self-reflect and beneficial as well to see how others see you, how you come across as a leader, or how you come across as a human being at large. So We touched base before on self-awareness versus situational awareness, and how you see yourself and how others see you, and whether this is different or not. But we will touch base now more on ego and confidence. And before I start and delve into, it's not actually a thorough book review as per se, but just sharing some ideas and insights from the book, I would like to really highlight that I am not qualified to speak about this topic from the psychological aspects. So I would leave that, of course, to more qualified people to delve into it from the psychological aspects. But I would just like to define as a start what ego is and what confidence is as a definition from referencing the APA Dictionary of Psychology, which is the American Psychological Association Dictionary of Psychology. So basically, starting with ego, it has two definitions. Primarily the self, particularly the conscious sense of self in its popular sense. Ego refers to all psychological phenomena and processes that are related to the self and that comprise the individual's attitudes, values, and concerns. So that's a very objective definition of ego, basically self. In psychoanalytical theory, the component of the personality, that's the second definition, the component of the personality that deals with external world and its practical demands. So more specifically, ego enables the individual to perceive, reason, and solve the problems, test reality, and adjust the instinctual impulses of normal life that demands the superego. Of course, superego is when it enlarges, and I mean there is a very famous picture when you look at yourself in the mirror and you see a bigger picture of yourself. That's basically what ego is, just as a mental image. On the other hand, the definition of APA Dictionary of Psychology to self-confidence is, and also there are two definitions of such when it's as a noun, self-assurance, trust in one's abilities and capacities and judgment. So again, abilities, capacities, and judgment. So of course, this is based on evidence and based on long-term analysis of your own acts and deeds, because it is typically viewed as a positive attitude. And the second definition is an adjective, self-confident. It is a belief that one is capable of successfully meeting the demands of a specific task. So the belief, which is again based on evidence, that you are capable of successfully meeting the demands of a task. So these are just by definition the differences between ego and confidence. And again, back to now the book under review or under conversation or under discussion is ego is the enemy. It is really interesting because the title, Ego is the Enemy, makes you start the book focusing on how can I conquer ego. But then again, at the end of the book, you tend to see ego as not an enemy, but as a friend if you're able to tame it. So taming that ego within, taming the sound that you have, the inner talk that you have, and the inner voice that you have is basically the objective of the book, and also hopefully the objective of this talk by the end of it, inshallah. So ego versus confidence as a comparison now that we have, we're done with the definition, we will examine four features of both ego and confidence and see together how they're different. So basically, when it comes from the source, the first feature, the source of ego is external validation, external and not internal. So basically, you are more impacted and influenced by how others see you, and this is really taking over your thinking of yourself and your mind. It's always comparison to others. How am I compared to him, compared to her? So that's where if you're thinking about yourself is always based on that and driven by that. So this comes from ego. On the other side, the source of confidence is the inner self-belief, grounded in abilities. Again, when we mention the definition, it's based on the abilities, your ability to perform a single task or a specific task. So this ability comes from your inner self-belief because you have done it before once, twice, and more. So you are confident that you will do it again. This is totally different than ego and a different source. When it comes to the second feature, which is basically focus. So the area of focus of the ego is the self, is I want to be. So that's proving worth. I want to be something. I want to be this rank. I want to be this level. I want to be this person. Being right as well, as in always right, as opposed to the source of confidence, which is growth. I want to do. The focus is to be versus to do. So I want to do this. I want to learn this. I want to achieve this goal. I want to have this milestone in my life. I want to do rather than I want to be. So I mean, both, of course, are okay, but in terms of having to focus, where is the focus more? This is the area of focus of ego, and this is the area of focus of confidence. The third feature here is the reaction to failure. So test yourself. How do you react when you fail in a specific task? Are you consistently being defensive? So, and especially if you're being confronted with this failure, how do you react? In a defensive mechanism, start to self-doubt and start to blame others and just, do not wanting to actually mention any mistake that happened, and maybe denial as well. So this comes with ego. On the other hand, on the flip side of the coin, if it's based on confidence, then you start to analyze. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn, as we always tell our students in the classroom. Don't we always tell them that? So accordingly, we have to implement it ourselves. If I did a mistake, if I failed, I fail forward. So I fail to feed forward on it and adapt and have resilience, and I don't avoid clearly announcing it so that I can learn from it. That's when it comes to the reaction to failure. And the fourth feature here to cover is basically the impact. So ego's impact, if you are big on your ego and you see yourself grandiose, this limits actually your potential, because the flip side of it is that sometimes your inner thought is that I am big, I am worth, I'm worth it. So accordingly, I will be able to, progress more in my life and have good relationships and achieve higher ranks. And the actual reality is totally the contrary. It limits potential and it strains relationships because you, at a certain specific time, fail to see how others see you because of this barrier of ego. When it comes to confidence on the other side, impact is that it fuels progress, because you're basically limiting yourself to the analysis of your abilities rather than the analysis of how you are perceived by others or how you compare yourself to others. And it really does foster healthy connections moving forward. Also, Ryan Holiday highlights in his book 4 areas of how ego holds you back. And it does really hold you back. So basically, number one is fear of failure, because people with huge ego, as opposed to confidence, they feel failure. But people with confidence, they don't, that failure is a part of success. Failure is just the first step of success. You cannot succeed without failure. So ego makes mistakes feel like personal attacks, and it always is personalizing any situation. If you do have a big ego, you feel that they are people attacking you, giving you feedback. They are attacking your persona rather than giving you feedback about that specific incident so that we can learn from it moving forward, and it paralyzes the action. So that's number one, fear of failure. How ego holds you back as well is the missed opportunities. So the obsession with being perfect, and that's different than perfectionism, prevents taking risks that are needed for growth. So accordingly, because you are always in your comfort zone, avoiding making mistakes, so you will also be missing lots of opportunities. The third way of how it holds you back is creating toxic relationships, actually. So ego-driven need for control and validation damages the trust and collaboration between others in the team work. And of course, many of us might have seen this in their workplace and in their lives when it comes to people that are, we call them control freaks. As a matter of fact, you always have to be in control of everything in your life, and that's not always possible. 100%. The fourth aspect here and how it holds you back is stagnation. So again, we touched base on that in missing opportunities, which is the second aspect, but basically clinging to past successes. And this is a very, very interesting part of the book when it really describes success, and specifically early success, as a potential blindness of your capability to move forward into new possibilities for learning. And how is this? This is basically when you keep focusing on your successful event that blinds you from moving forward. So clinging to past successes blinds you to new possibilities and learning, and that's called stagnation, according to Brian Holiday in the book. And that I really found that as the most interesting part in terms of how you can succeed in something and then move forward. Don't keep speaking about it internally, even to yourself, so that you think big of this incident and you think big of yourself, and it really might even blind you from moving forward to other successes and other successes. Now, we mentioned in the beginning about ego being the enemy, but then by the end of the book, you tend to see ego as a friend if you're able to tame it. So if you're able to tame your ego, because each and every one of us has ego. There is no one without ego. And there is no one without self-confidence. But it varies from a person to the other, of course, when it comes to the level and your and to what extent are you surrendering to your ego rather than taming it. So basically, five advices and actionable steps on how to tame your ego mentioned in the book. So basically, self-awareness, recognizing ego-driven thoughts that come from the I. Again, according to the definition of the APA, it is basically self. So if the focus is always self, I must be the best. I am worthy of this. They are wrong as opposed to me, rather than the actual acts and actions. So basically, this needs more self awareness. So self awareness really is recognizing the ego-driven thoughts. The second actionable step here is practicing humility every now and then, and of course, as much as possible. So acknowledging limitations, remembering always that there is no one on earth without limitations. So if you are self-aware, number one, you will be recognizing your limitations and knowing and identifying your areas for further development and areas for growth. So this will build up on your humility. And be open to feedback and be open and do not feel that people giving you feedback are actually intimidating you or are threatening you or are personalizing some attacks to your persona. And this will be making you able as well to celebrate others' wins because there is a famous quote that keep clapping for others until your time comes. So celebrating wins and thinking win-win does not mean that celebrating people's win will diminish my own persona, because you're not thinking of your persona, you're thinking of your awareness and you're thinking of your actions moving forward. Point number 3, when it comes to an actionable step, is focusing on effort. Again, focusing on the action, focusing on what to do rather than really what to be. And that's focusing on the action rather than the outcome. There is also another very, very famous quote and that's for all leaders out there. It is basically a happy leader is always focusing on actions and plans and not focusing on results, because you cannot control the results. So again, here, that's another advice from Ryan in the book: focus on effort and not on outcome. So you value the process for learning and improvement over just the results. And again, for us teachers in the classroom, Don't we always tend to face that with our students when they come to panic, and especially now that we are during assessments, during the time of assessments, and they usually panic because of the result, because of the number, and then we tend to just minimize and limit the progress of our students into just a number. But of course, we do not care about that as true educators, rather than we care about the development and the evolution of the characteristics and the persona of our learners moving forward. So again, focus on the effort, progression versus attainment. The fourth point here, when it comes to reframing failure, how do I see failure? It is not a threat. Setbacks are data points. They are not personal attacks. So always the question when it comes to failing, to be able to fail forward, is how or what did I learn from this moving forward? Or what did we learn as a team, and so on and so forth. The fifth and last actionable step here to tame your ego is to basically build a supportive circle, because surrounding yourself with people who uplift and challenge you constructively and not challenge you negatively to demean you or belittle your actions or yourself, this is really truly important to overcome ego. Because if you are surrounded by people who are continuously negatively affecting you and influencing you and your persona, then you will tend to uh, you know, go look for your ego and make it bigger, so that as a reverse psychology or reverse mechanism, so that you can defend yourself and think good, think high of yourself, because people surrounding you are affecting your persona and affecting you and challenging you in a deconstructive way rather than a constructive way. So always, this is the circle. Be always aware of the circle that you put yourself in, and that people that you surround yourself with as well. Last but not least, and before we conclude, um, and we mentioned as well in the objectives of this session, is that you will be able to overcome your self-doubt. Uh, we are all very familiar with the imposter syndrome, uh, especially people who learn a lot, and especially people who are passionate about growing themselves and putting themselves into a new situation and getting outside of the comfort zone and doing some new experiences. And whether in work or in life, you always tend to say, okay, so now I'm into this new situation. How am I going to act? Am I going to fake it until I make it? Or am I going to surrender to the fact that I'm new to this, and being actually new sometimes put you into an awkward situation? Will that affect my self-confidence? It will definitely affect my ego if I have a big ego. So again, how to overcome the self-doubt and any limiting beliefs that I have in my inner voice. That's basically as well through 5 steps according to the book. Challenging negative self-talk. Counter each and every I can't with evidence of the past that you actually could and did in a similar situation. Not necessarily exactly similar, but maybe just similar context or potential. 2 is set realistic goals. So basically to be achievable, and it has to be measurable. So breaking down the daunting tasks into smaller steps. And of course, as we always do with our learners as well in the classroom, when we find a specific challenging task that they have, we tend to chunk it down for them and make it into more smaller steps, so that they can feel that they are actually moving and progressing, because this will make them have self-confidence. Rather than looking at a big task as a mountain, just look at it as a step by step. And as you do that, point number 3 is celebrating small wins. So acknowledging the progress, no matter how minor it is, it needs to be celebrated. Even if you were just celebrated with your own self, just feel happy that you did that. Yes, I did it. And that's it. Move on. Number 4, practice self-compassion. So treat yourself with kindness. Many of us always tend to blame themselves, and especially people who are over analytical and overthinkers. And that's not always really healthy, because at the end of the day, you will be not compassionate with yourself. And I mean, the most important person to take care of is yourself so that you're able to take care of others. And again, we mentioned you cannot pour from an empty cup. So treat yourself with kindness. Understand you are human, and humans make mistakes at the end of the day. The most important part is to learn from it and not to uh, act as if it didn't happen or try to cover it up. Fifth and last is seeking inspiration. Read about people's biography, listen to podcasts of people who've overcome obstacles and how they did that. And of course, Ryan Holiday as well has another book that I really, really recommend. Is called "The Obstacle Is the Way," and that's also with regards to finding yourself through challenges and being outside of your comfort zone. This was basically what I really wanted to cover in the book, and his conclusion is that your ego does not have to be your enemy. By becoming aware of its influence and taking proactive steps, you will overcome your ego and you will be able to tame your ego. And again, as we mentioned, there is not a single person on earth that doesn't have ego, but it depends on the question is how big it is, how influencing it is to your day-to-day um, operations or day-to-day practices, as we say. So that was basically what I wanted to cover in the book. And moving forward, I would really hope to highlight some books, and we will open the discussion for our participants as well. And we send you emails. What books would you like to discuss, and what books would you like really to have maybe a discussion, a conversation with their author? Moving forward, if we are able to bring them online, I will do my best to do so because we would really like to have this space as a virtual professional learning community. So we are educators who care about ourselves and care about others, and that's basically why we are into education in the first place. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been doing this. Calling, I would like not to call it a job. So yeah, we would just have a couple of months as a vacation, and then starting September, we will be back into the following season of the Educators Clinic webinars with book authors and book reviews. I will be sharing with you a list of books, but I will also be looking forward to having more insights from you if you have suggestions for books to read and go through, and that would be in multiple languages as well, maybe English, maybe Arabic, and maybe Spanish. And these are only the three languages that I'm able to read books in at the moment. But if any of our participants would like to suggest any books, we would always have the translation for that as well. I would really want to thank every one of our attendees. And before I conclude, if anyone has any question or a comment, now is the time to drop it on the chat. And Haifa will help me out knowing who asked or who commented about anything. If there is no such a thing, so I'm happy to conclude. Haifa, all good? Is Haifa with us or did Haifa leave? Okay, I can't hear Haifa. I think I can see the chat as well, the Q&A. Q&A box is empty. All right. So I would assume that we're good to go. Thank you so much for your time and dedication, and we will keep you on our mailing list and keep connected via emails until the next season. Have a very good break if you are in the part of the world that has a break at that time. If not, have a very great evening or rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining in to the Educators Clinic, and see you again, inshallah. Cheers.
Thank you everyone for joining. Looking forward to see you in our upcoming series and wish you a happy Eid break. Thank you.